So shall we start, sir? Vaman, sir?
Yes, definitely. We can start.
Good afternoon to all the participants as well as our guest speaker for today. So we are starting with day 2, session 3, and our speaker for today is Dr. C. Vaman Rao. Sir holds a PhD in biochemistry from Mumbai University, and he has a teaching experience of around 41 years. Currently, Sir is heading as Professor and Head Department of Biotechnology Engineering, NMAM Institute of Technology, NITTE, Udupi. Sir has a very vast experience guiding even the research scholars. So he has guided around 10 PhD students and is also presently guiding quite a few. He holds around 85 research publications to his credit, both in national and international journals. Sir has also authored quite a few books on immunology, which includes Textbook of Immunology under Narosa Publishing House, Immunology, Narosa Publishing House, Biology for Engineers, IK International Publications, and currently one of his book is under publication, which is Textbook of Cancer Biology. He has received a grant of 93 lakhs for the research work, and presently he has received a grant from Birac Pace of 49.16 lakh for the topic to develop adjunct anti-venom therapy for snake venom from the pharmaceuticals obtained from Coexy-Lacy-Joby root extracts. So sir also has 2 patents to his credit. Sir, on behalf of the management, the principal and the HOD, Department of Biotechnology, the students and staffs of Department of Biotechnology, we deem it a pleasure in having you as our guest speaker for today, sir. So welcome
Thank
to
you very
this
much.
online STTP, AICT sponsored STTP program. Sir, it
Thank
is
you very
over
much.
to you to take over the session, sir.
Yeah. Thank you for the pleasant introduction. Let me request you all that my humble request, I would like to continue the lecture, and please reserve your questions at the end. Organizers, this talk will be for 1 hour.
Sir, 1:30, 1.5 hours.
Okay,
So,
okay. Then it is followed by question and answer, right?
Yeah, 1 hour you can take and 30 minutes you can keep for question answering, or 1.15 you can keep it for lecture. Another
Okay,
15 minutes we'll keep it for
okay, sir. Okay,
and
sir.
dear
Thank you, sir.
participants, chat box will be open. You can keep a question ready so that you can chat with the sir. Or you can
Yes, sir.
unmute once he finishes, you can unmute and you can ask the questions.
Not in between, sir. Let them
Not
ask
in
the
between,
question
at
at
the
the
end
end.
of the session. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
end of
Yes,
the
sir.
session. Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I took this topic, bio-inspired engineering marvels, is because I always admire nature. So before I start my lecture, I would like to put before you the famous quote of Albert Einstein. You know that Albert Einstein was a fantastic and a very famous scientist of lot of achievements, but he was a very humble person, respected nature so much. In this quote, if you see, he has mentioned about a spirit which he refers to the God Almighty or the creator of this universe. And we all know that the creator of this universe has done such marvel, and the life on this planet, which has evolved over the millions of years and which is having that support system, is nothing but very good engineering which has been done by that creator, whoever he is, and which has to humble all of us looking at this marvel of the nature and the things that have gone into this nature, and looking at this nature only we have to learn, and nature is the best teacher for all of us. And there are many clues that are there in the nature. If we can learn from it and put to practice, the life on this planet becomes much easier, and it will be good for all living beings on this living planet. But unfortunately, the human race at present, after 90s onwards, is somewhat disconnected from the nature and leading a life of a kind of separate entity and existence. And because of this disconnectedness, there is kind of a disharmony, and we are paying the price for that. And if you compare to the previous, our ancestors and forefathers, all of them lived happily in harmony with the nature. And they did understand nature well, and they did take some lessons from the nature and put it to practice in their life, and they led a very good life. And in that situation, hardly such any kind of environmental calamities were there. They were protected by nature, but now that we are disconnected and we are enforcing ourselves to control the nature, thinking that we can control, we are making a big mistake, and that is leading us to disaster, and it may lead us to even extinction. Whatever may be the case, I will try to explain some of the nature's marvels which has been put into practice in engineering, for which I will first take the plasma membrane as an engineering marvel. You all know that plasma membrane is called as an universal membrane, which is there in almost all living systems, which supports the living system. And it is almost the same in all. And it is the one of the organelle of the cell which performs multitasking work. And
Excuse me, sir.
yes,
Sir, your slide is not changing.
I did change. It may take little bit of time, looks like, because of the internet communication gap. I did change.
Sir, actually, it is on
huh.
not on slideshow. That is why I guess it is not getting changed.
I did put it on the slideshow.
Okay, but for us it is not showing in slideshow. Can you please one more time stop sharing and share, sir? Actually, sir, instead of share window, click on share screen, sir, so that proper slideshow you will get it.
Oh, I'm trying. 1 second.
Okay, sir.
Sorry for the inconvenience.
It's okay, sir. Sir, usually when you share the window directly, it happens, sir. We had experienced this problem, so you can stop sharing and
Just-
share your screen, sir.
Yeah,
Instead
I'll
of
just do that.
yeah.
I'll just take the assistance of somebody because I am not very much aware of this.
Sir, that the top near this mic button, you will have a cross mark. You can press that. Once you cross that, click that undo mark, the screen will stop sharing.
Okay.
You can close this, sir. Yeah, you can close this.
Yeah.
Now you go to that up arrow, sir. Click that up arrow.
Where is that up arrow?
Near to that mic, sir. Video mic button.
This it is now down and it is showing desktop window. I'll
share the desktop, sir.
Okay. And where I have to go? I have to go to the Windows. I'll go to the Windows.
No, sir. You share the desktop. You will get, when you click that, you will get a screen or desktop or window. Okay, so you press that screen button, sir. You click on that screen. Just press it. Sir,
Yes.
can you hear us, sir? Sir. Click on that up arrow, sir.
Yeah.
And then click the screen, sir. Share screen.
Shares. The screen number 1 it is showing.
You click this share, sir. Screen. Click on the screen. Yeah, sir. Now you minimize this team, sir.
Okay.
And then go open the PPT, sir. Click on the PPT, sir.
Okay. And then I'll
Now
go
put
to
it
the
on
slideshow.
slideshow. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yes,
Now,
sir. Now it's,
is it? Now
yes,
let
sir.
me
Right.
see. Well,
Yeah.
I'll change the slide. Is it changing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sorry for the inconvenience. Is it now changed?
Yes, sir. It is changing.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Extreme apologies from me. I'm very sorry. Let's go back to the marvel of the plasma membrane. The plasma membrane is the universal membrane that is there in all living systems. And you all know that it can perform all these functions like phagocytosis, pinocytosis, endocytosis, all this what I've listed here. It does the selective transport, that is aided ion transport through the gated channels. Energy aided transport also it does. In addition, it is capable of transporting water soluble and lipid soluble materials across it. Plus, it can do even neurotransmission, carry out electrical conduction, helps in contraction of muscles, and it has a flexible structure which is capable of self-healing. All this in one particular organelle of the cell, that is the membrane of the cell. It really marvels me because despite so much of advancement in the technology, engineering technology, it has not been possible to mimic everything about the plasma membrane in the artificial membranes that have been designed. And you know that the plasma membrane can carry out these functions simultaneously at different regions of the cell at the same time, and which is not possible with the artificial membrane that has been designed till date. And what are the different things that plasma membrane does with which is been little bit mimicked in the artificial membrane is by designing artificial membranes with chemical structure like this, which resembles the collodion and cellophane membranes, cellulose and nitrocellulose membranes, which are in fact used for the purification of water or for the dialysis purpose or desalination of the water. Even the cellulose membranes and nitrocellulose membranes are used in high intensity, high pressure filtrations. The Millipore filter membrane is nitrocellulose membrane, which is used for filtration to make the substance aseptic. So all these devices that have been engineered by the engineers to meet the requirement of the plasma membrane, which does normally all those functions, partially they have been able to achieve. And for example, in the electrodialysis, there is a need of application of electrical potential. That is, you need to apply the current, and you can have the anionic exchange membrane as well as cationic exchange membrane. And through the application of power, one can separate those ions which are there in the hyper concentrated salt solution for the desalination process, and then finally that water that is generated from that without the salt molecules is used for the drinking purpose. This is what the technology that has been put for the desalination in the places in the extreme deserts where the fresh water availability is very scarce. In the Gulf countries, as well as even Israel has developed this technology for the desalination purpose of the seawater, to use the seawater for the drinking purpose where the water scarcity is very high. And the other purpose of the membranes that have been developed is for the reverse osmosis for our drinking water. Those the filters that we get in our house, where the drinking water is purified through the RO technology, the reverse osmosis technology, the semi-permeable membrane that is put with high pressure, the water is, it could be even the hard water, which is pushed through that membrane, gives you the fresh water by retaining all the salt molecules. And you know that in our household filter that we use, the RO filter that we call, has a filter like this with many layered the membranes that are wrapped around a central tube, and the water passes through it, and concentrated molecules, all salt molecules, get trapped in this membrane part, and the pure water is channelized through that central tube, which is used for drinking purpose. And you know that all these membranes that are used, whether it is for the reverse osmosis or for the electrodialysis, any of these, they have a limitation. They will be clogged anytime, and maybe you may be able to wash them off and give them a wash and reuse them. But the efficiency of their performance of the function will not be the same. And this, whatever the limitations that we experience with the artificial membrane, you will not see that in the plasma membrane. Plasma membrane is unfailing, and it supports the life system all throughout until the person lives without fail. And if there is any failure that takes place in the plasma membrane, you know that what are the different types of diseases a human being suffers from because of the problems with the plasma membrane. And that is what one of the wonderful the engineering marvel that has gone into the plasma membrane of a living cell, which has made that cell function in different way in different regions of the body because of the flexibility of the plasma membrane. You know that neurotransmission or conduction of nerve impulse occurs through the plasma membrane through the action potential, and it is conducted right from the central nervous system to the periphery of the body, and from the periphery of the body to the central nervous system in the reverse direction by the sensory nerves as well as motor nerves, where just simple the ionic exchange, that is sodium potassium pump, that is exchanged between the membrane, that is resulting in the electrical potential, and that is leading to the neurotransmission. Same way, the exchange of the sodium potassium pump across the membrane, it leads to muscle contraction, and at the same time the membrane also can generate high voltage current. And high voltage current, you can see that in torpedo fish, you might have seen this fish, which is a marine fish, which has two big electric organs on its head, and that is connected through the nervous system. And whenever this animal is threatened or whenever it wants to paralyze its prey, it generates such a high voltage electricity using this electric organ. It is simply based on membrane principle. It is just the pumping of sodium potassium ions across the stacked cells which are there, like the stacked batteries. And this is the diagram that is depicting like the battery cell, and the electrical potential is changed across the membrane by the exchange of sodium potassium ions, and it will generate a voltage of about 300 volts. And that voltage is sufficient to stun the prey which it can eat upon, or it can stun the opposite enemy, which will drive away and run away from the scene because of that such high voltage. The second example is Amazon electric eel. And this eel can generate voltage of about 400 volts in one time. Immediately after disturbing it, or somebody tries to capture it or hold it, it will generate such high voltage of current of 400 volts just by the muscle action. And those muscles are shown here in the diagram, that main organ and Hunter's organ. And those muscles have that membrane, that is sarcolemma, and that sarcolemma does this ionic exchange. And when the electrical potential is not there, this is the organization of the membrane where positive charges are outside and negative charges are inside. And as soon as the electricity is generated, the positive ions have gone in, And you can see that it is also arranged in the stacks. And these muscle fibers generate such high voltage that one cannot capture this eel. It will stun the person and numb the person, and hand will be, in fact, for a moment, become so numb and loses the sensation who captures this eel. This is all because of the speciality of the plasma membrane. Other than that, nothing else is there. There is no other organ which is doing that. It is the speciality of the plasma membrane. Then this technology of generation of electricity using the membrane potential has been put into practice in microbial fuel cells. But still, engineers have not achieved success in this. The reason being the microbial fuel cell that uses the membrane for the proton driven force and the proton through the wastewater treatment, it does get fouled or it does get clogged. And therefore, the electricity generation drops. Whatever the electricity generated through the microbial fuel cells till date, they have been able to use it for, in fact, running a clock or a small device which needs minimum voltage rather than a big automobile or a big device. So still the success has not been met by implementing that membrane potential technology in the microbial fuel cell. Then coming to another important region of our body, that is the heart. There are two important nodes in our heart. One is sino-auricular node and auriculoventricular node. The auriculoventricular node generates the electrical potential which is passed on through these nerve fibers which are called as Purkinje fibers or bundle of His. Okay, bundle of His or Purkinje fibers which generate the electrical potential that is discharged to the ventricle of our heart for the contraction of the ventricle. And that is all that electrical potential is generated through that auriculoventricular node. And the second, that is the first one is the sinus node or sino-auricular node, which generates the electrical potential that in fact discharges the electrical potential to the atrium or the auricles, which contract and push the blood towards the ventricle side. So the rhythmic contraction of the sinus node and the auriculoventricular node is so well planned that our heartbeat never misses. It goes in a rhythmic fashion that the sino-auricular nodes, in fact, they coordinate with each other, which help in the contraction of the heart muscles for the pumping of the blood. And this potential that is generated, the electrical potential that is generated there, is also by ion exchange. Here, in this case, the exception is it is sodium calcium ion exchange instead of sodium potassium ion. And that is the pacemaker what we talk about. And you know very well, when this pacemaker fails, the person will have failed heartbeat or the failed rhythmic heartbeat or weak heartbeat, which may be there. And that weak heartbeat may be due to the autonomous nerve impulse, but not because of the impulses that are generated by this pacemaker. And you can understand the marvel of the plasma membrane here, which is generating that electrical potential sufficient enough for the contraction of the heart. And it is a function which will go on 24/7 without stopping in a rhythmic fashion without fail. And when that fails, people have now come out with the engineering device that is called as a pacemaker, which has a battery which is operated through the battery, and it can be implanted in the chest of a person. And those electrodes will be connecting to the respective areas, one to the sino-auricular node, another to the auriculoventricular node, so that the mild electrical voltage that is generated by that battery is sufficient for generating electrical potential to induce the heartbeat, so that the person's heartbeat carries on with the pacemaker that has been implanted. And this pacemaker came only after the understanding of the functioning of the pacemaker that is naturally present in the heart, that is sinus node as well as auriculoventricular node, which are natural nodes which are made up of the plasma membrane and that plasma membrane generates the electrical potential. You can imagine, when does this beat originate in a person? How does this beat originate in a person when the life is created? And what stimulates this pulse to start, or the creation, this heartbeat to start in the embryo which originates in the mother's womb? Can you imagine these things? And you will wonder the nature has done this. And then by knowing this, the engineers have come out with this, which can be done. But once the heart completely fails, it is impossible to start the heart for beating. It is very difficult. Even you give the electrical current. Next, you take another important organ of our body, that is hearing organ. And the hearing organ, that is our ear, has in the internal ear a region called as cochlea, which has the organ of Corti. And this organ of Corti is nothing but the specialized cells with the special plasma membrane. And some of these specialized cells which are there are called as hairy cells. Why? Because they are made up of large number of ciliated projections on them. And they have a tectorial membrane, and the tectorial membrane is capable of detecting the rhythmic waves that are generated in our middle ear by those ear ossicles. The middle ear, those ear ossicles generate the sound, just like the Morse code after receiving the sound on our eardrum. And that is conveyed to this organ of Corti in the cochlea, and that cochlea conveys that all that message that has come in the form of electrical impulse through these specialized cells, which have a special plasma membrane, to the nerve, that is the auditory nerve, which communicates the message to the brain. Now, I hope you understand the marvel of the plasma membrane, which has done this function of hearing in the case of a person. And imagine this fails in a person. That is what leads to the deaf mutism. The person will become deaf as well as mute, and he will not be able to communicate because he can't hear the sound waves. All right. So that is what. Now, the engineering device that has been developed with the microphone and the transmitter, which is attached to your skull, and then a receiver, and they are all been microsurgically connected to the cochlear region, has aided a hearing impaired person to hear the sounds that are generated. That is by the understanding of the cochlear function, which does that communication of sound. So this is how the engineering marvel has taken place, by knowing the biological function of the ear. Then coming to the disorders, if the plasma membrane fails due to certain reasons, for example, the neurodegenerative disorders like Alzheimer's disease, due to deposition of the beta plaques, a type of protein, and that will cause the abnormal membrane function. And you know, the person suffering from Alzheimer's, what happens to the person? It leads to loss of memory, loss of thoughts, and loss of actions. Similarly, if you talk about myasthenia gravis, which is a disease because of the receptor which is responsible for receiving the signal from acetylcholine, which comes and binds to the receptor and the neurosynaptic junction and communicates the message to your skeletal muscles to perform the function. The motor action of your skeletal muscle is brought about by the action of the acetylcholine that comes and binds to that receptor. Imagine that receptor fails. The acetylcholine receptor fails on the membrane of the skeletal muscles. Your mobility will be impaired, and that is what leads to myasthenia gravis. Second, another disorder of the nervous system is multiple sclerosis, where the myelin basic sheath, which insulates the nerves, which is being secreted, that myelin is secreted by the plasma membrane as an insulation over the nerve fibers. And that sheath is going to be destroyed. If that sheath is destroyed, leads to multiple sclerosis. It is as good as an electric wire having no insulation. it is very difficult for the person to communicate messages from the central nervous system to the periphery or from the periphery to the central nervous system. Then coming to cardiomyopathy. Once again, a membrane dysfunction in the heart muscles, which are cardiac muscles. They also have ion channels and they also have to be pumping the ions accordingly because they are continuously contracting and expanding. And anything goes wrong with this ion channel of the plasma membrane of the cardiac muscle, it leads to cardiac myopathy. That will be resulting in heart failure. Then pacemaker, I've already explained to you the malfunctioning of the pacemaker, where the channels may be malfunctioning, and those channels, ion channels, due to malfunctioning, will fail to do the rhythmic contraction of the heart. Then renal failure, where the filtration capacity of the plasma membrane in the kidney is lost, resulting in kidney failure in a person. And you know that the person has to take the help of a dialysis. And dialysis is based on the principle of membrane filtering. So you understand now the marvel of the plasma membrane, which supports the life system on this living planet in all living things by performing different functions and doing multitasking at the same time and giving life to the individuals. Coming to other bio-inspired engineering designs, we'll take the another bio-inspired engineering design that is regarding the flight. The design of an aeroplane is almost based on the design of a bird. The bird is well adapted for the flight. And you know that the wing of a bird, which is well adapted for a long distance flight, is very well streamlined. And this is the picture of an albatross. And albatross is a seabird and which has a long wingspan of 2 meters across and a beautiful wingspan with the architecture of such a type that look at the airflow over the wing, and the same design is there in the aeroplane for the airflow. And the design of the aeroplane is based on the wing pattern of the birds. And when you take the wing pattern of the birds have, in fact, different way of spreading the wing. Now here you take, this is the vulture that is flying at a high altitude with well spread out wing, and these wings, the feathers on the wings are called as remiges, and feathers on the tail are called as rectrices. And imagine when the bird is hovering, when it is flying, the rectrices are closed and the wing is fully spread out and the bird is flying or gliding in the air. But when it is hovering in the air, trying to detect a prey, it will hold the wing in a different pattern and the tail feathers are spread to give a drag, and it is waiting at a particular place just by beating the wing and holding onto the same area, hovering it. And when it has decided to dive down, you know that the wing shape is going to change as well as the tail feather shape is going to change. And see, when it is diving down to capture the prey, whole pattern of the wing is shaped like a torpedo to minimize the resistance to the body, and it is going towards the ground to capture the prey diving down. As it approaches the prey, the wing is spread like a parachute to resist and break the speed, and then once again that same wing is used for flight after capturing the prey. Now going back to the aeroplane, the next time when you book a ticket in the aeroplane, please book a ticket on the window seat on the wing and observe the changes that are taking place in the wing. In the aeroplane, wing for us, it looks like a rigid object. But remember, in the posterior part of the wing, that hind part of the wing, there are blades, and those blades move forward and backward and they bend down also. And that is what I have shown here. And the principle adopted here is exactly like the principle of the flight of a bird. Now, in the case of the flight which is flying and cruising at a very high altitude, the blade is in parallel with the wingspan and it is withdrawn inside. And when the initial climb is taking place, when the flight is taking off, the blade is protruded out, but it is in the same plane of the wing. It is same plane of the wing. The blade is protruded out. And then when the flight is landing, you can see that the blade of the wing is in fact pushed downwards, and it is putting a drag, and the wing is having a resistance, and that will lead to braking of the flight, in fact, on the runway when it is coming to a stop. Then finally, it is going to be withdrawn inside. All this mechanism that has been devised in an aeroplane is based on the patterns that have been observed in the wing of a bird during its flight. How the rectrices and remiges are changed and expanded and closed when the bird is in flight, when it is showing the change in direction, when the bird is going to change the direction, it will use the tail feathers, which are rectrices, which are going to be tilted towards the left or right, depending on the side to which it is going to move or turn around. And same way, in the case of the plane, you might have not observed in the tail wing, the tail flap which is there, there is a partition here and there is a rudder. And that rudder, just like the rectrices of the bird, can tilt towards the left or tilt towards the right when the plane is changing its direction. When it is turning to the left or right, the rudder is going to tilt to the left or right and change the direction of flight. And all this bio-inspired engineering in the case of aeroplane has come from observation in the bird flight pattern. Then coming to the another important small animal, that is dragonfly. The dragonflies, which if you have observed them in their flight, they have two membranous wings on them, two pairs of wings. And these two pairs of wings move or flapped in the opposite direction. Each one does the opposite function. To keep the flight of the dragonfly, look at the body shape of the dragonfly and the abdomen. And the dragonfly wings, when it is flapped, you can see the directions here. If the front wing is going up, the hind wing is coming down, and it is beaten in a fashion like you can imagine, like eight shape. And the eight shape, if you put it lying down on its side, you can see it from the side. It is rotating in the eight shaped pattern on its side. And if the front wing is rotating in the clockwise eight shape pattern, the hind wing is rotating in the anti-clockwise eight shape pattern. With the result, it generates the air current in this manner for the dragonfly to fly in the air. And dragonfly can hover in the air and remain steady in one area. At that time, what it does is it will use only one pair of wing, that is the front pair of wing, it will use for the beating, and the hind pair of wing it will use for parachute or balancing, and it will remain in that place for a long time, hovering without moving forward or backward or going upward. So that is how it operates. By looking at this flight pattern of the dragonfly and the air currents it generates, the helicopter was designed. Look at the shape of helicopter. It resembles a dragonfly, the head region of the dragonfly and the tail region. And these rotor blades which are there, they are maneuverable blades, and they operate exactly in the same manner like the dragonfly wing operates. Now, how they operate, let me show. When they operate, they generate the air current in this manner for the helicopter to take off or to land. And you know that there is in the tail region of the helicopter, there is a propeller. There is also a propeller fan, and that operates in the opposite direction to generate the current like this. You can make out when the helicopter is taking off and lifting off from the ground, it is going horizontally upwards. When it is going horizontally upwards, the wing blades, you can see the wing blades, the shape of the wing blades changes and it generates currents in such a way that it sucks in current and pushes the helicopter upwards, and the balancing is done using the rotor blades that are present in the tail region. And whenever it has to land down horizontally, it will come and touch down. That is facilitated by changing the shape of the rotor blade, and this can be depicted here. You can see here when the helicopter is under rest, the shape of the rotor blade is exactly horizontal. There is no change in shape of the blade. It is resting now. When it is going to take off, you see the change in the shape of the blade that can be done through the rudder and the control which is there with the pilot. And when you pulls this rudder, the blade shape changes and it will undergo concavity like that. And then it develops an angle to generate the air pressure and push the air down so that the helicopter can take off. Same angle will be changed when the helicopter is landing down backwards by changing the shape of the blade. Then we'll take another marvel of the biology. The similarity in the design of a submarine body and the whale body. Whale, you know that blue whale, which is a largest whale in the sea. And that blue whale, in fact, has a torpedo-shaped body with a small dorsal fin for minimum resistance. And that whale can remain underneath the water for about an hour without breathing. And it can take the pressure of the water, such an intense pressure underneath the water, it can take it very easily without any problem, without rupturing of its blood capillaries. It has designed its body so well that it is adapted to coming to the surface, take the gulp of air, going to the bottom of the ocean, and without any disturbance in its body physiology. Same design has been put to the submarine, and submarine also almost resembles in the body shape like the shape of a big whale. This is how the architecture of the submarine is done based on the body shape of a whale. And you know that the whale surfaces out and uses the blowhole to suck in the air and blow the exhausted air. And once it sucks in the air, sometimes you have seen in National Geographic or in the Discovery Channel, when the whale just surfaces and blows the air, sometimes the water also gets squirted out, which has come to the surface of that nostril. And it propels out that water like a jet. And you can see it is like a propeller. And then it sucks in the air and goes to the bottom and remain in the bottom for an hour. Same way, the submarine also has to surface and take the air and go beneath the ocean surface. Now, when they are underneath the surface, it is in the darkness, and the communication of sound is very, very important. And communication of sound will be easy in the water compared to radar communication. Submarine, when it is submerged, it is not possible to establish radar connection with the submarine. It has to navigate and move around and find out the objects only through the sound waves using ultrasonic devices. And these two devices, ultrasonic devices, have inspired, that is there in the bat as well as in the aquatic mammals like whales, dolphins, etc. And they have echolocators, which are called as sonars. They generate ultrasonic sounds at a different frequency, and that sound that is generated by whether it is a bat, and the bat generates the sound from its nostril, and that sound goes towards the prey, hits the prey, and reflects back with a different frequency. That is what is shown here in the figure. You can see the waves of different frequency. One which is reflecting back from the prey will be of different frequency. One which is going towards the prey is of one frequency. Same way, in the case of dolphin or the whales and porpoises or the aquatic mammals which live under the water, they create such high frequency sounds which are emitted from their nostrils, and those sounds go and hit the object and reflected backwards, and they are received by their jaw and communicated to the auditory area. Same echolocator principle is used in the submarine, and submarine generates high frequency ultrasound, and the submarine can decipher and make out whether it is an obstruction or whether it is an enemy ship or whether it is an enemy submarine. All that through the sound waves only it can discriminate and then take actions required. And if you have seen the movie Ghazni, you will get the full idea operates underneath the water. If you have not watched that movie, it is very nice movie. It is worth watching how the people live in submarine, how the submarine operates using the bio-inspired principles of the biological designs that are there in the nature. Then coming to another important bio-inspired sensor. All of you know that senses of the snakes is very powerful. Some snakes have the devices. Using that device, that is in the case of pit viper, the pit organ that is present below its eye can detect the temperature of the prey from a long distance, more than 2 meters distance. It can detect the temperature of the prey. It has the temperature sensor in its pit here in the pit viper. Similarly, the tongue of the snake can sense the chemical stimuli or the chemicals that are released by the prey or the predator. And that chemical released by the prey or the predator captured on the tongue, and it is touched to the Jacobson's organ. And by touching it to the Jacobson's organ, that snake can make out whether it is a prey to be attacked upon or whether it is a predator and to escape from the predator. It is on that basis the snake takes the decision. And using that sensory system of the snake as a bio-inspiration, the missile technology was developed. The nose of the missile, some of the missiles, say for example, anti-tank missile. The anti-tank missile has two sensors in its nose. One sensor which detects the diesel fumes. The another sensor detects the temperature generated by the engine of the tank. So both these sensors are put in the nose of the missile, and that missile is fired either from the aeroplane, that is the jet fighter, or from the land to land missile or air to land missile. Both these use this technology, and that missile will home in and hit the target because it has those two sensors. Similarly, in the case of air to air missile, the sensor that is put there, which detects the temperature as well as the fuel that is burnt by the jet fuel. And jet fuel is detected in the sensor of the tip of the nose of the missile, and that missile will detect it and follow the jet and destroys the jet by hitting the jet at the appropriate location where it has sensed the heat which is emitted from its the engines. Okay, so therefore the jet fighters come out with a technology to avoid the path of the missile. They have technology that avoids the missile attack by, in fact, jamming the missile or by diving down or changing the orientation of the plane suddenly. They will make the missile to go to the wrong direction. So like that. So anyway, now coming to the another beautiful analogy, that is the bio-inspiration that has come, is from looking at the locomotion of the crab for designing the Mars rover or the Mars Spirit that was designed. Even today, the lunar rover is designed on the principle of locomotion of a crab. You know, the crab is the animal which can move backward, forward with the same speed or agility, as well as it can move sideways, left and right with the same speed and agility as it does forward or backward. Its speed of movement is almost the same in all directions. This is the only animal that has got that capacity. And it is an arthropod with the joint legs, with the hinges in the legs. And this animal having this agility, which is named as Cancer in the zodiac sign. And from that, the scientists derived that inspiration to use that same word cancer for the cancer that develops in the human being. You know that when the cancer develops in the human being, it has no direction in the body. The cells will proliferate in any direction and move to any part of the body, and they in fact do metastasis, and the metastasis results in spreading of the cancer in the body. And that movement of the cells and migration of the cells is compared to the crab. Therefore, the term was used for the tumor or the cancer as cancer. Now, one more wonderful aspect about the crab is that you have seen this animal in the beaches. Some of them are rock crabs and some of them are sand crabs. Whether they are sand or rock crabs, all of them have same agility. And you know that the rock crab, which is on the rock, which periodically gets, bathed with the tide, high tide, and the high tide comes and hits, and you stand in that rock. If it hits you, you are going to be dislodged from that place. You may lose balance, you may fall. But the crab doesn't lose its grip. It holds on to the rock so firmly that it doesn't get dislodged in spite of such a very high tide. Only unfortunate aspect about the crab is that when it falls on its back, it cannot become upright. It will never be able to become upright because it doesn't have those appendages which will facilitate it to take a support on the ground and come upright. Same thing happens with the Mars rover or the Spirit. If the Mars rover or the Spirit, due to some reason, if it falls on its back, it will be impossible to put it back on its wheels once again. So, by adopting the technology of a crab, which shows the agility in locomotion, using its appendages, backward, forward, sideways, all that has been put in the rover of the Mars or the lunar rover, by using those angles and the speed of the movement of those wheels and rotation of the wheels in a different angle, all that has been put in this using the hinge joint technology of the crab. Crab has a joint foot with hinges, and those hinges have flexibility, limited flexibility, and the same amount of flexibility is given to the rover. And the rover moves around by locating the elevation of the area and orienting its wheels in such a balanced manner so that it doesn't topple any time. But unfortunately, if the terrain is so uneven, when it is climbing the terrain, if there is an obstruction and that obstruction obstructs its motion, and then possibly it may topple and fall, which might have happened with one of the Mars Spirit, which became totally immobile. 2 spirits were sent on the Mars by United States of America, okay, and 2 of those rovers, one of them failed, and one is still working on the Mars. So the angular flexibility of the movement of the wheels and orientation, and in fact even the detecting of the elevation of the topography of the land, all that is there, which has been designed in the rover exactly like the crab, and it shows the mobility just like the crab. So that is what I'm trying to tell you, that one of the bio inspiration that has come into this device is by observing and studying the locomotion of the crab. Then coming to the countercurrent heat exchangers. The largest fish, that is tuna, which is found to be in the oceans of the Pacific Ocean, and even in Japan it is seen, and it is a highly prized fish, and it is a long distance swimming fish with a beautiful muscular pattern, and it is muscular pattern with the blood vessels are designed in such a way that it doesn't lose the heat to the environment. Even when it is swimming in the cold water, its core of the body has 37 degrees temperature, just like a mammal, and that heat is generated because of those movements of the muscles during the swimming, and it conserves that heat in the core of the body by using a countercurrent heat exchanger mechanism. The arterial blood supply that leads from the core of the body to the periphery is pre-cooled before it reaches to the periphery by the veins that are coming from the periphery. The veins that are coming from the periphery will be having the cold blood of the atmosphere in which it is swimming, and that cold blood will draw the heat from the artery, and it goes preheated at least about 5 degrees less than the body temperature to the core of the body, but not the very cold, that is -5 degrees temperature water where the tuna is swimming. Similar mechanism you will see in the sea mammals. Sea mammals have the body temperature similar to that of human being, and their body temperature, core body temperature, can be up to 36, 37, or 38 degrees depending on the type of mammal. And it has the flippers, and those flippers are very thin, adapted for swimming. The flippers which are there in the tail fin and the flippers that are there for its swimming, they have a countercurrent heat exchanger mechanism where the veins that are coming to the periphery, which are there in the periphery, which have a cold blood, when they are carrying the blood to the core of the body, they will get preheated like this, where the artery that is coming from the core of the body bringing the hot blood will dissipate all the heat to the veins which are surrounding it, and this phenomenon is called as richae mirabilis. Richae mirabilis, where the veins are spread into small capillaries around the vein, so around the artery. Therefore they capture the heat, and the heated blood goes to the core of the body, so that the animal does not lose the heat to the environment. And you have seen sometimes whales will be swimming in freezing, sub-freezing waters, and those waters will be having temperatures of -5 or -10 degrees temperature with the ice floating on the surface. In such cold waters, when they are swimming, they should not lose the heat, and this countercurrent heat exchanger has facilitated them. So this countercurrent heat exchanger phenomenon, or the principle, is adopted in the fermenter design. In the fermenter design, the outer jacket of the fermenter has the same mechanism. When the fermenter generates the heat due to fermentation process, that heat which is generated should not spoil the content of the fermenter. Because of that, the heat exchanger has been installed in the outer jacket, which facilitates the cooling of the fermenter by passing the cold water, and that cold water reaches the core and maintains the temperature of the fermenter at 37 degrees, which is required for the microbes to do the appropriate fermentation, and all the heat is carried by that water back, and it is once again cooled in the air coolers and sent back to the fermenter, and that is recirculated. This principle has been adopted by bioinspiration, by knowing the principle that is there in the animals, which already have put it in practice in their life for conservation of heat. Then brain cooling mechanism in the ungulates, those which are like deers, samba deer or gazelles, which are there, which are predated upon by the mammals, that is the lions or tigers. When they are chased by these predators, they have to run a long distance. When they are running, they generate very high heat in the body, and that high heat generated in the body directly gets communicated to the brain through the carotid artery. To prevent the brain getting overheated, the artery that enters the brain, that is carotid artery, it is split into fine capillaries in an area just below the brain, and that area is called as cavernous sinus. And that cavernous sinus surrounding that artery is made up of the large vein which has in fact surrounded that artery, and that vein has a connection to the nostrils as well as to the tongue. The animal, when it is running, it is breathing very fast, and it is cooling the blood in the vein that is spread out in the nostrils, as well as the vein that is spread out on the tongue due to panting of the animal. And that cooled blood is brought to the cavernous sinus, and where the hot blood from the carotid artery comes, which is cooled, and sent at an appropriate temperature of 37 degrees to the brain so that the brain doesn't get overheated. Suppose if this mechanism was not there, the animal would have developed convulsion and brain could have got overheated and it would have given up. Therefore, many a times when the predator is chasing an ungulate, it will escape from the predator and will not get captured. Very rarely, a weak animal gets captured by the predator. Then coming to another fantastic phenomena, sliding filament theory of the muscles. We all know that muscles contract and expand based on the sliding filament theory. Two muscle filaments, that is actin and myosin filaments, slide over one another, and this is brought about, these proteins slide over one another just like the sliding plates, and this is brought about by the ion exchange principle of the sarcolemma, that is the membrane of the muscle fibers, and that ion exchange results in the development of the electrical potential that facilitates the contraction of the muscles. Anyway, this mechanism has been put to practice in the diaphragms. The diaphragm of the camera or diaphragm of the microscope to lessen the light. The diaphragm is made up of plates that slide over one another. And the mechanism that is adopted here is exactly the same way the muscles slide over one another, muscle fibers slide over one another. And these diaphragm, the plates which slide, similar phenomenon of sliding plates have been used for closing the gate wall of some of the fermenters operates on the principle of sliding plates. If you want to change the size of the orifice, the plates can be moved as per the requirement and the orifice can be changed. Okay, and that orifice is in fact controlled. The size of the orifice or the opening is controlled by the movement of the plates. All right. So this is one of the technology that is involved, which is using the principles of the muscle plates or sliding plates of the muscles. You know that robotic arm, which has been used in the automobile industry. What is this robotic arm? This robotic arm is perfectly designed similar to the human arm. It has also got joints. It has also got hinges. It only that it operates through the command sent through the computers, and it operates through the electrical current, and accordingly it will operate in such a way that all its maneuverability, all its operation exactly similar to the human hand. Once again, it is a bio-inspired design of a human hand, where the joints of the human hand with ball and socket mechanism, you can see this joint resembles the ball and socket mechanism of our shoulder or the ball and socket mechanism of our elbow. Okay, and the bending and movements, all that is done exactly similar to our arm, which is depicting how the biological anatomical features which are there in the anatomy of the individual have been adopted for the engineering technology. Then coming to this scooper of the JCB, it resembles exactly like the trunk of an elephant. Whatever the elephant trunk does, whatever the functions that elephant trunk does, except respiration. Elephant trunk is used for the respiration by the elephant, and it is used for capturing the food or taking the food or moving the object or pulling down the branches, etc. All that is done by the scooper of the JCB. It is on the same principle. It works on the same principle as the trunk of an elephant works. So you know that now whatever the technology that has been put to practice for the human requirement, many of them have similarity to the biological principles that take place or biological designs that are there already in existence for millions of years, since the origin of the life on this earth. All right, and that creator is so great and such a wonderful engineer who has put this thing in perfect manner, which has facilitated this life on earth. Then coming to other bio-inspired materials, spider silk is used nowadays for the preparation of bulletproof vests. And that spider silk, sometimes you know that there are spiders in jungles like Amazon jungles. which are large enough, which weave the web, which is so good enough and so strong enough, it can even trap a bat. Small bat get trapped in that spider web. And it is designed so well that the bat's echolocator will not be able to locate it or detect it. Imagine it has designed that spider web in such a way that it does not reflect the sound back. It is a soundproof material designed or produced by that large spider. And when it weaves that web, bat cannot detect it, and bat dashes against it and gets trapped, and that spider eats that bat, which is a small bat. Then coming to another bio-inspired material, hydrophobins, produced by plants. You know that the lotus leaf, which floats in the water does not stay on the surface of the lotus leaf. Similarly, the colocasia plant, the patrade plant, the leaf of that plant, water does not remain on the leaf surface. There are some bacteria which grow in the oceans, which grow in highly oil contaminated areas. And these bacteria grow in oil contaminated area and survive there by developing a extracellular coating on their surface, that is hydrophobins. Plants also have this, even bacteria have developed hydrophobins. Because of these hydrophobins, these bacteria can survive in the oil, using that oil as a carbon source and survive in the oil spills. Taking the cue from these bacteria, these hydrophobins have been extracted and have been produced in large scale using the fermenters, using those using those oil tolerant bacteria found in the oil spilt sludges and areas of the ocean, isolating those bacteria from that area. They have developed and grown these bacteria to produce hydrophobins in large quantity at the industrial level, which is being now used as a water resistant coating, and that can be used in the paints. It has been used as a windshield spray for the cars to prevent the water logging on the windshield and blurring of the vision. And this has been possible only because of the bio-inspiration. Then recently I came across a person from Bangalore has got inspired, bio-inspired, and developed a sewage treatment plant using the microbes of the bovine gut for the treatment of the sewage, which can do the anaerobic functioning, and there is no need of aeration. And the present day sewage treatment plant need aeration, circulation, etc., because the bacteria that are used or bacteria that are present there are aerobic, and aerobic treatment goes on there, which is cost, in fact, higher cost involving process. Whereas this person has said that it is a low cost treatment process which gives good results, better results, and maybe it will come in the market in future for the treatment of the sewage. Okay, and all that inspiration that I got from observing the nature and from studying the nature, I've put it in this book of mine, that is Biology for Engineers. And it is the God inspired, in fact, the stimulation for me, which I've put it in this book. And whatever I've explained to you now, up till now, all that is there in this book. Thank you very much. I'm open for the questions now.
Dear participants, now the forum is open for discussion. You can put your question in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and you can raise the question. Sir, I have little doubt in your first phrase of explanation regarding plasma membrane. You are explaining,
Yeah.
and can we avoid the clogging of membranes using the plasma membrane mechanism of action?
See, present day membranes that have been designed, which are artificial membranes, okay, some of them are reusable membranes and they do not perform with the same efficiency as the plasma membrane, the function, but only they can be used for the desalination process or removing of the salt ions or in the hard water treatment, all these things. But they have a limitation in the sense that when they get clogged, you may give a wash, you may treat them with certain chemicals, possibly you can give an acid wash, etc., and reuse them. And after reusing them, they may not perform the same efficiency of function like the plasma membrane, and efficiency will keep dropping with the reuse. And that is what has been observed even in the desalination plant. The desalination plant has a limitation where the seawater is desalinated using the membrane technology and using the electric field where anode and cathode, in fact, cationic membrane and anionic membrane both are used. But once again, that desalination membrane that is used has limitation. After some reuses, it has to be discarded. And once again, new membrane has to be put. That is the limitation everybody is facing till date, and nobody has perfected the mechanism, just like the plasma membrane. You will never see the plasma membrane getting clogged or stopping the function for any reason. And whenever that happens, if it has stopped, it has got clogged, you know that what happens. For example, in the kidney, the plasma membrane in the extremely diabetic patients, sometimes they experience kidney failure. The reason being excess of glucose being there in the blood, which has altered the membrane property. And that membrane property that is altered in the kidney has resulted in their kidney failure. Many diabetic patients suffer from kidney failure. It is because of the altered property of the membrane. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And any work is done on that, sir, to reuse that or
Which
to
one?
avoid this kind of thing?
So that is what, see, they are trying their level best to find mechanisms to, put the use of these artificial membranes for a longer duration. But maximum they have succeeded is the utilization of this membrane up to 5 uses. That's all. In the desalination plant, after the 5 uses, reuses, it has to be discarded. And these artificial membranes have another problem. Even though they are designed so well, they become brittle after the continuous use. And because they become brittle, there is a chance that they may break after the reuse. And if they break, then there is no possibility of filtration.
There is one hand raised in the chat box. Alvin, maybe you can unmute.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Can I ask some questions, sir?
Yeah,
Only one.
please.
Yes, sir. Sir, it's a very nice topic to hear this, but I have only one doubt. When we are combining this biomaterial as well as that designed material, mathematically, when you are comparing that, how much it is effectively it is giving this efficiencies?
Which biomaterial you are talking about?
So when you are mimic the same kind of material, when you're in the practical situations, but when you are doing this mathematical modeling, when you are designing these equipments and all, how much it is effectively it shows the potential.
You have to design it so perfectly.
Yes,
for the example, you take the example of a plane wing.
Okay.
Okay. And the design of the plane wing, I showed you in the photograph, the airflow on the wing of a bird as well as the plane wing.
Yes.
Okay. And it is perfectly designed with that mathematical calculation that the airflow is almost like the same manner it happens in the bird wing.
Okay.
All right. Now you change the design a little bit by altering the mathematical formula.
Okay.
And you will see what will be the consequence of that. Okay. And all this has gone through trial and error method. All right. and
Okay.
they have fine-tuned and come out with such mathematical equation which has now been finalized. But there are different designs in the aeroplanes. The fighter jets, if you have seen, you know, the fighter jets are the only aeroplanes which can change the shape of their wing. Have you observed that? They can expand their wing, they can expand it, they can bring it even closer to the body, depending on the flight action that they take. But it is not there in the plane that is used for passengers. Passengers, it is simple design which uses only for flight, glide, land, or takeoff. That's all.
Okay. Okay.
But as far as fighter jets are concerned, they will change the speed, they vary the speed, right? And they change the direction, dive down, or go up very fast. You might have seen their aerobatics during the Republic Day
Yeah. Yeah.
celebration
Yeah.
or
Yes.
during the
Yes, sir.
air show.
Yes,
At
sir.
that time, if you observe very closely a fighter jet, the wing shape changes. And all that is perfectly mathematically calculated. Otherwise, that plane is going to crash. Understand? So
Yeah.
any design, take the design of a robotic arm. The movement, the angle of movement, the action, all right? And all that is designed perfectly like the human arm that moves. Now you just move your arm and see which all directions you can move your arm and which directions you have resistance. Okay. All that you see, and the same principle is applied in the robotic arm.
Okay.
Participants, any more questions?
So Sarras inspired all the participating minds in such a way that people start thinking about mimicking the biological things. And Lord Sir has given a glimpse of human organs which can be used as a best engineering models. We have brain, which is the mastermind of our supercomputers, and we have eyes, we have lungs, we have so many other organs, which may be an inspiration for engineering faculty attending here to come out with the technologies and to apply to see the application, real-time application of this biological system in the society. Hope Sir has given the complete information about whatever the biological things that he has narrated in his book, that has inspired me to invite him to the and introduce you people to the concept. Hope our effort has reached the participants. And on behalf of Oxford College of Engineering and Department of Biotechnology, and on behalf of the committee of SCTP, ACT sponsored SCTP, and on behalf of all the participants, I thank Dr. Vimal Rao for taking his precious time and triggering the minds of our participants and the faculty members who are participating here for thinking it in the direction of bioengineering.
Thank you, sir.
And
Thank you very
now
much.
I request the coordinators to take over the session forward.
Thank you, sir. At the outset, we at the Oxford College of Engineering, Department of Biotechnology, deem it a pleasure and convey our heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Veman Rao for being part of this STTP program and gracing this occasion and becoming a speaker to this session and enlightening the participants with his talk. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.